Hey guys, this is my first YouTube and today is my birthday and I'm super excited to share 7 life lessons I've learned about people, business, investing, and everything I know. And just for people that don't know, my name is William Thing and I'm a serial entrepreneur and I have $6 million in real estate as well as built multiple 6 to 7 figure businesses. And I'm excited to share everything I know because a lot of people when I was growing up have helped me and mentored me on this journey. And I also want to share the love and just like pass on the knowledge that I've gained as well. So here we get started. 7 lessons I've learned. Number 1 is you can do anything, but you can't do everything. What that means is in life, there's so many things you can do, and depending on how much skills and where you're at in the world, there's a lot of things that are pulling your attention and just like you want to do a lot of things, right? But what I found out is you have to go very narrow and deep on 1 to 2 things at a time. And it kind of sucks because there's so much to do in life. But I found out that just like how I was doing a lot of investing in different assets like stocks, crypto, and other things, it just took a lot of my attention and I never got really far. I made good money, but I didn't make like life-changing money. And that changed when I started focusing on one thing, which was real estate investing. And when I got really deep on it, I started seeing it compound over time. Instead of me doing all these 4 to 5 different things and making some money in all of them, when I focused on 1 to 2 things, it just like blossomed into this bigger compounding machine, which is how I built a $6 million real estate portfolio, which by the way is gonna double by next year because all my properties have the ability to be built a second or third unit on it, which is then gonna like double the value of my portfolio, right? And that's what I wanna share with you guys because we got to focus on just a few things at a time and just let it compound as long as you take consistent action and learning in that space. And then on top of that, another bonus lesson on that is whenever you're starting something new, try to have an unfair advantage where you use the previous thing that you've been working on and compound it over time and bring it to the next thing you're doing. So here's an example. I used to do tech, software, and systems. So I took what I know about, leveraging tech and software and systems into real estate, which allowed me to create reusable systems and also like allowed me to automate a lot of stuff into real estate, which allowed me to build this big portfolio in such a short amount of time. And now that I'm learning a lot about real estate, investing, and development, I'm gonna take it to the next thing, which is building real estate software as well as my branding. So I'm building a property management software, which by the way, guys, I'm gonna be releasing very soon. Follow me as I build this on my next leg of the journey. But for you guys, whatever you're building and you're compounding, make sure you try to take that to the next thing you're doing. Because if you don't do that, you're essentially starting from zero. And that's not what you wanna do. You wanna take everything you've learned and just take it to the next thing. So you don't start fresh from zero. The second thing, you can't judge a book by its cover, especially people. What I realize is words don't mean anything unless they're backed by people's actions and characteristics and core values. So whenever you're, working with someone or you're, talking to people and you're trying to build like relationships and hire people or, partner up with people, I use this for everything I do. I don't really trust people's words until their actions and their character aligns with those words. Using human psychology, right? You gotta understand how people think, and people unconsciously show more of what they are intentionally doing based on how they react, based on what kind of actions they take. And then it then leads to what they say. So what I focus on is I don't judge people by what they say, because you never know what's going on in their head. But when you see people's actions, you can judge that because actions speak louder than words, right? So, for example, is if someone is saying they're a hard worker, I want to see that they're actually, showing up on time, being really fast at responding, and that shows that they're committed and want to be here and they're a hard worker, right? And then once they show enough action and what kind of core values they have as well as character, then you can start trusting their words. And then that's when trust and relationship is built with whoever you're working with and partnering up with. So that's a core thing. The reason why I want to talk about this is because the third thing I want to talk about is I realized, being a nerdy software engineer, I didn't talk to a lot of people. I just spent my time talking to other engineers who are introverts and then just working on the computer and just talking to the computer through programming language and, like tech and stuff, right? But what I learned in, being a entrepreneur and real estate investor is all opportunities come from people. This is extremely important, guys, because without talking to people, without taking action and putting yourself out there and communicating to people, you're not going to have a lot of opportunities like finding deals, making business relationships happen, and investing in things that you didn't think you could do until you talk to enough people and build a lot of relationships and your network where things just keep happening to you. So that's how I was able to build my real estate portfolio so fast, where I just put myself out there. I learned how to communicate with people, build trust, show people, not just through words, but through my actions that I'm very serious and I want to make things happen. The number 4 that I want to talk about is what I realized is you got to treat life like a game. And let me explain, okay? Life is amazing and it's just how you view it through whatever lens you want to look at it. But I like to view it through a game, and it might be through my gamer background. I played a lot of RuneScape, MapleStory, StarCraft, and Diablo when I was a little kid, and that's probably how I see the world. But it has served me extremely well, guys. Let me tell you why. So in different stages of your life, you're gonna be, kind of like in a game, there's different levels, right? And different levels, you have to start figuring out certain things to unlock the next stage in the game or life, right? And throughout the game, you're having fun, right? Because you're just like figuring things out, everything's new, like that's how you have to treat life, right? You have to enjoy the process and you gotta treat it like a game. And sometimes figuring out means you got to talk to people, you got to build up your skills to reach a certain level to unlock things, right? And I treat it like you're a character of your game. You're the main character. And sometimes you gotta level certain skills in the game to unlock certain things, right? And then on top of that, sometimes you're gonna have to beat certain levels where you need people around you. So how I think about it is sometimes you gotta build a party in a game where you start recruiting and teaming up with people to take on a boss, right? So that's how I think about life. It's just like a game, right? You got to start leveling up skills that you want to level up. You got to get stronger. You might have to, do things you don't like. You got to talk to people as well as recruit and build up a team, a party where, you're on a journey or a quest or a side quest or whatever. And then you just keep climbing the ranks and the levels in the game. And another bonus I realize is whenever you're in this game of life, whether it'll be, building your own business, investing, or whatever you want to do in this life, it's usually like in this game of life, it goes down to 3 stages, that I think is a cycle. And number 1 is the learning and education phase. You got to build the knowledge in whatever skill or thing you're trying to do. And then whenever you learn enough, then the next stage you have to unlock is then you got to apply it and take action. So then you're going to be in the next stage and applying the knowledge that you've learned and taking enough action. And then once that compounds and you took in enough action, it's just like you got to keep doing it. That's the 3rd stage. You have to consistently master and take action on it so that then it can compound and create the result you want. And when it's not working out and you think you've consistently done enough action, then that means that you're in this stage of stagnation where you got to then go back to the first stage, which is learning. And that's how I think about life, is you're consistently either at the stage of learning, accumulating knowledge, or you're in the stage of applying it and taking action, or you're in a stage of you got to just keep doing more volume on those actions and being very consistent with it. And then once you have exhausted all of that, then you have to go back into the first stage, and then it's just an endless cycle. And that's just how I've applied everything that I know into the things I'm doing right now. I want to talk about number 5, which is from a book that I love called Think and Grow Rich. There's 2 books that changed my life in the beginning. The first book I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a classic. And the second one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So in Think and Grow Rich, there's a philosophy and a mindset which is called you got to have the end in mind. And I use this for everything I do, especially because I'm an engineer. And in engineering, we always think about the end goal. What is the end result? And that's what the end in mind means. What is your end goal? What does the end result look like to you? What is your intention? What is the top thing you're trying to achieve, right? And then you got to work backwards. Kind of how engineering, we reverse engineer things, because when we know what we're trying to build, like Tesla, like how Elon Musk built Tesla, the car, he was like, okay, this is what I envision. This is the end goal. How do we work backwards from that, right? So for you, maybe it's financial freedom. For me, it's like building a real estate portfolio and businesses that allow me to have more passive income. What does that look like? How much passive income do I need? And then work backwards from that, right? So that's why the end in mind is always important. And you can use that to everything you do in life. So for example, when I'm buying a real estate property, I sometimes have to add security. And what does that look like? Security is getting a linked chain fence, right? And then it might have to have surveillance. What's that look like? I got to figure out what the camera, does it need Wi-Fi? Does it not need Wi-Fi? And start working backwards from that. And just like, that's how I look at every single problem. Like, we got to think about the end goal and be very clear about it. And once you're clear on it, that means you solve 50% of the whatever the end result is, which is usually you already have 50% of the solution when you already have the end in mind. Number 6, which is I think one of the most important lessons you can learn, and one of the things that have served me really well, is understanding leverage. Because we're moving from the age of industrial, like raw materials and scarcity and all that, you can't have a scarcity mindset anymore. You have to have more of what's an abundant mindset. And when you have an abundant mindset, it's more of using leverage, because we're in the age of information and there's so much, noise and things that you gotta like not have in your life, as well as going narrow on things that give you more leverage, basically. And leverage is when you're giving an input, you get more output from that input. So that's basically leverage, right? Naval Ravikant, who is a serial entrepreneur and one of the top angel investors and intellectual minds, said there's 4 forms of leverage that I took to heart. And the 4 leverages are said in 4 C's. So it's code, which is like software, automations, AI. The second form of leverage is content, like media, social media, personal brand, creating videos just like this one. And then number 3 is capital, which is, using your money to potentially make more money or move things and make things happen. And the 4th one is collaboration, which is hiring and recruiting people and having people, do things for you so you don't have to use your time. So the lesson I learned here is you got to learn how to use either one form of leverage very well, or, use them in a combination and just go narrow on 1 or 2. And before, I used to think, having capital and money was like the number 1 form of leverage, but that's actually not true, because like in real estate investing, money is just one part of the equation. What I've learned now is I want to leverage more of content and code. The reason why is I think you can get the most value and the most leverage from these things, and it brings the other 2 easier. And if I was to start over again, that's what I would focus on either content and building my personal brand, or code, which is learning about technology, automation, and AI, because these are the cheapest forms of leverage. And when you start compounding this form of leverage, you're gonna, I think, in my mind, you're gonna get the other forms of leverage, which is people will collaborate with you and capital will come because you've already worked on the other two forms of leverage very well. And it's so cheap to start. All you need is a laptop or a phone, which is crazy, right? So this is the cheapest it's ever been to achieve these forms of leverage and utilize them. And now the seventh thing that I think is one of the most important lessons I've learned is you gotta have extreme ownership and you gotta have extreme urgency. So ownership and urgency are the core philosophies that I value a lot. And here's why. You gotta understand, in this life, no one is here to save you. So you have to take ownership of all the good things and bad things that has happened to you until now. Because when you start taking ownership for everything and understanding that you're, good or bad, at fault and responsible for everything, that's gonna give you power. And when you feel more powerful, you're gonna be, having the mindset that you're the one that controls your reality and you're the creator of everything around you. So that's why I always take extreme ownership, and I value people who take ownership, because everything at the end of the day is because of you. So you got to make things happen for yourself. You got to take ownership of all the good and bad things that happen. And when you're in control, then you can start making things happen for yourself. And then this brings me to the next part, which is urgency. At the end of the day, we only have time. So that's why, for me, urgency is extremely important. Everything is about speed. You don't have to have things be perfect. And you should know by now, what I realize is everything in this world is not perfect. And there's beauty in not being perfect. And that's why you should value speed over perfection. So what I realize is the more faster I can be on things, the faster the results and the things I want come to me. Because then I get to spend more time on what I enjoy, because I have become faster on getting the things that I want in life and getting the reality I want. And then it gives me more time to enjoy what I built and, be around people that I like being around, like my friends and family. Just imagine you only got 1,000 hours in life. The faster you can achieve everything that you need to achieve, then that 1,000 hours, let's say, instead of, let's say you spent 400 hours achieving a thing, then you got 600 left. But if you get faster and you do, instead of 400 hours to achieve the goal or whatever, and you had done it in 200 hours, then you just added another 200 hours of your life that you can spend doing things that you enjoy more of. That's why I always like to think of everything in terms of time. And that's why urgency is important. Because again, at the end of the day, all you got is time. Now I want to give you one more bonus lesson, which is you got to invest in assets. Let me explain why. You want to make money while you sleep. This is very important because, again, using all the lessons I've learned, all you got is time, and you need money to enjoy more of life and get the essential necessities, right? So you want to focus on building systems and leverage where you're able to achieve passive income. When you're sleeping, you're making money, or whatever you want to do in life, you're just making money. You don't need to worry about that, because when you take that out of the equation, then you get to focus on other things, which gives you a lot more time as well as peace of mind, right? So the number one thing that I learned is you gotta stack assets so that you can get passive income as well as more of your time back, right? You just wanna buy back your time. Thank you guys, and make sure you subscribe to my channel if you like this and find it valuable.